Howdy, welcome to the Political Science Fiction Podcast, the podcast where we explore real political science topics using science fiction. Yeah, is a thing we do occasionally.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to uh pick for this
Yeah,
episode in terms of like movies or
yeah,
um like science fiction or any form of literature or whatever for the at least film aspect. There's a couple of episodes that I would have liked to have been able to do and wasn't able to do because of it, but
typed in a couple names of things in the notes that I thought of just because we're doing super prisons. We're doing like a little 2 or 3 part series on super prisons because there's a lot to talk about super prisons.
Mhm.
Yeah, the next one's probably going to be on more like constitutionality and like prisoner rights in that one. Um or at least the part on my end. I know you had some things you wanted to do, but like on my end that's a lot of the stuff I'm covering
This
in part
episode or
2.
the next episode?
In part 2. Part 3 I'm leaving
Okay.
open as like a mystery thing if I think of anything else. This one's more I guess
Yeah.
maybe or maybe part one part will be more about like one of the future parts will be more on like constitutionality and like prisoner rights. One of the other ones will be about prisons for like super powered people, as in a super prison is in like a prison for super
Mhm.
powered people, because that's its own little can of worms. But this one's more about the first part's going to be a bit more about prisons that are in and of themselves super. Like as in there's something fantastical
Sure.
about them. In like talking about a big sec idea I think that you brought up when we were talking about when we were doing the little bit of texting we do before we decide what we're doing, and you mentioned like prison cities. So I looked up. Are there any examples of that?
Yeah, you'd think we would do way more the like prep for some of these episodes than just like, hey, do you want to do an episode? Sure. What's it about? Okay, here's our list. Let's pick one of the topics and
Oh
then
yeah,
go from there. But
I mean the
I
fun.
mean, it seems to have be working. So
Yeah, I mean, there's always a bunch of examples of this sort of thing. Yeah, so for this one, we're more focusing on stuff that's like fantastical prisons that contain, for the most part, normal-ish people. But yeah, because I know the first thing I
I
did,
think
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
that kind of falls under to the fictional concept of everything because saying a prison that houses like normally normal people is going to fall to like main character syndrome a lot of the times where this person like weirdly has like an escape artist background or something along those lines and is in there for a very particular reason, but besides that we're like mainly I'm going to assume everyday housing.
Yeah,
um
yeah, a prison, for those of you who don't know, that's a silly thing. Yeah, a prison being like a place where, like in our tradition, Western tradition, is like a place where you keep people who have committed a crime, at least in theory.
mhm,
There's also
yes.
subset of like prisons for people who have not committed a crime. Uh, Differentiating this a bit from a concentration camp, which like a concentration camp is less of a, I mean, the it's being pedantic at a certain point about the difference between a concentration camp being something that's like entirely meant for innocent people. A prison camp will at least be in theory for like people who have committed some sort of crime. Uh, and sometimes you do drift into like concentration camp territory by like having the crime that people are being kept on of something that like is purely something concocted from this by the state, like something like, oh, you're getting a bunch of people that are like just like alleged illegal immigrants, or like just people who are like of an ethnic group the government's trying to get rid of. Like that, at that point you're going into concentration camp territory, or at least if that's most of the people in the prison. Yeah.
Kind of why I wanted to do
Yeah.
this episode is because apparently if Donald Trump starts doing something, we need to talk about it because
Oh yeah.
it's normally not a very good thing. So yeah, currently what the United States is doing with illegal immigrants, shipping them off to El Salvadorian super prisons is against the rules and was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, which Donald Trump promptly decided to ignore. So, uh, where his end goal with this is kind of auspicious at this point, or suspicious at this point, because he's also brought up the fact that he wants to put homegrowns. I'm
Yeah.
assuming he means homegrown criminals into these super prisons.
Yeah.
Um,
um all of this is obviously being hashed out as we speak, which yeah, I mean, your guess is as good as mine about how this exactly will end up playing out.
And my whole thing is, like, most people are very unsympathetic towards prisoners. We've seen it constantly where people have, stated if you can't do the time, don't do the crime or whatever the bullshit. One of the reasons why I brought this, up was because I wanted to actually ask you earlier, where when the Overton window started to shift away from, like, prisoners in general, and I'm gonna say probably the 1980s when
Uh,
the war on drugs and stuff like that started happening, and, like, uh,
I
we
mean,
started to push heavily for, mass incarceration, so,
it's a super
um, I
complicated
don't know if
thing.
the o
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
okay,
you use that
uh,
properly. Um,
okay, so it is the Overton window. So I always assumed that the Overton window was specifically talking about gay rights. So when the people started to like look at gay people like as because that's a lot of the times the um whatchamacallit, like the connotation that the sentence is used in. So just double checking that it's being used properly before I start
the dictionary definition of an
throwing that
Overton
around.
window, just for the audience, it's named after I'm pretty sure the political scientist Overton is the guy's name, but it's the concept of like
Okay.
the generally accepted political like ID, a general like the sphere, the window of generally accepted political positions on a given topic. And
Mhm.
yeah, if you're like on, and you can be on one side of it, you can be on the other side of it, but like everything that's like considered like a normal position is within the Overton window, and it can be on any subject.
Okay.
I I mean, it's an idea. I don't know. I mean, it's in and of itself not. It's an interesting thing to talk about. There are, I mean, yeah. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, as for whether it's shifted on the prisons are super complicated in this sort of scenario, like in this particular, in the way you've
Mhm.
yeah, in the question of how you've asked this. So like prisons over the last good 150 years, we'll say, have like shifted a lot in a different ways. I think I mean, the big story about the last 150 years is we've general like in a lot of ways we've gotten better at like consistently like enforcing legal principles as they are written, for better and for worse. But it is something that we are just getting better at. So like, if generally what I'm meaning is, if you write something down, it is becoming more and more expected that that thing will be carried out, which is not
Mhm.
necessarily, because there's a lot of examples in like especially like in the earlier part of that 150-year window, where things are written down, but they aren't necessarily enforced, and they are easily ignored when a politician finds it inconvenient. But at the same and at the same time, we've moved away, generally away from using things like corporal punishment and the death penalty. Corporal punishment meaning like physical like flogging and whipping people, physical punishments for crimes, and also ge- a little bit of, not so much in this regard, but there has been a slight shift away from forced labor of prisoners, which is absolutely still around. I think that of those three things I mentioned, the forced labor is probably a thing we've made the least ground on, but it is something that has shifted a bit. I think in the recent years, I'd say since the 90s, we've been like shifting into a more brutal prison system. It's just that in when that push begins in the 90s, it's not necessarily successful for a long time. And a lot of the successes of that movement to reverse some of these changes have come in more recent years. For the most part, this has resulted in this weird conundrum where prisoner rights are getting better in a lot of ways, but prison populations, particularly in the U.S., and to an extent, this is a U.S. exclusive phenomena, where prison populations in the U.S. are going up a lot. They might be drifting down, but
Mhm.
they are up from what they were pre the 90 pre when the before the crime started going down. So crime started going down, but prison rates are going up.
Sure.
Now, on to something you said earlier. Like the big thing about prisons is like, we sometimes take for granted the idea that like prisoners are in there to be punished. But I mean, it's one of those things where you can't, if you just let people do whatever you want to them, there will be just like the worst abuses you can possibly imagine. And then you get things like Joe Arpaio is the guy's name. He made a bunch of like he tried to bring back chain gangs, which is a particularly brutal force of forced labor. It's the one in the movies where you've seen like guys like on like a chain, like chained together and like chipping at rocks with a pickaxe. Like that's what a chain gang is, and he was bringing those
Mhm.
back. He was also notoriously really bad for prison conditions. He the food got really bad in his sort of scenario.
Yeah, I guess that also boils down to, because you said he was a sheriff. In the United
Yeah.
States, anybody could be a sheriff. I think it's a a voted on position, and it's sometimes not really wanted. And what they found that was people who ran it tried to do it as cheaply as possible because the portion of their budget that wasn't being used was given back to the sheriff's department.
And some of that was happening with Joe Arpaio. Uh it got to the fact where like
Yes.
he
Yeah.
was cheaping out on food. And this is the really catch 22 about
Mhm.
Arpaio in particular, is that he was cheaping out on food and like other things, and that was causing people to like die and get hurt, which resulted
Yeah.
in lawsuits, which cost more money than he saved on like not buying salt for prisoners. So like it was eventually just a net fail.
And then I think he was also yeah, I think he was also using it to, like, pimp out, his, own personal office with, like, margarita machines for the staff and stuff like that. Because that's especially what you want is, like, an abuse of power being done while alcohol is also involved, so, not
I
good.
don't know off the top of my head if that specifically happened there, but none of this is relevant because Donald Trump pardoned him.
Gross.
Yeah, yeah, this is the fucking world we live in. But yeah, that's sort of just like a yeah. So we've had like a bunch of shifting things going around here. Like there has been progress, but I mean nowadays things just seem like they're slipping back a good bit. Um, but yeah, we're gonna be back in the
I wonder why.
yeah back in the 1950s any day now. Yeah, God help us. But
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, a
I
lot
I
of
and I
yeah.
mean, I think
Go
I
ahead.
have, like, a very different, like, unique, um I wouldn't say unique, I would say different opinion on a lot of this because, like, my parents worked in the prison system for,
Hmm.
like, 15 years.
Yeah,
My father was or my stepfather was a prison guard, and my mother worked, part of the union and stuff like that, and, like, we are definitely not as bad as the United States,
yeah.
and, my parents worked in, restorative justice rather than reputative justice, so it's a very different, like, outlook on how we treat people in the prison system, but, reputative justice is basically punishment, while restorative justice is like, "Hey, how can we get people who have committed crimes back into, like, um, society, like, as meaningful as possible and as, like, better." Yeah, locking people up in a cage for 24 hours a day is like reputative justice. Um, lots of like community time and stuff like that. Um,
So yeah, and there's some things we're kind of gloss over in this little topic. I think a lot of like sci-fi prisons are kind of just like, okay, this is a logical extension of what you would do with the prison if you had sci-fi technology. Like, so I'm not
mhm.
gonna go over too much of like what you see in like Andor season one, where it's like, oh, you have specially created security mechanisms to like keep people from escaping, because those are just ideas that you could potentially come up with if you had the technology. But we are gonna talk about examples of that because that's brings because in that prison in season one of Andor, Andor ends up in a sort of like prison island situation that's like a big underwater base, which is effectively an island. And that sort of thing has happened. Obviously, Alcatraz, a very famous place. It was a prison island, big maximum security prison set off this coast of San Francisco, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yep.
it was a big. You put big prison on an island so that it's a big problem for people to escape, and that saves you some trouble of but just like at least you don't have at least if even if they do climb the walls you don't necessarily need to worry about people wandering off once they get out, which is bringing us to my first little I'm doing the notes in the reverse order because I never put them in order. uh Now the big issue here is that like they kind of like in principle is like the goal of maximum security prison is to keep the the allegedly dangerous convicts from escaping. They're kind of effective. Like that's just the fact of the matter. People like I pulled up some statistics from the United States because the United States has I mean depending well
Mhm.
but like they say the largest prison population on earth, at least the largest prison population among people who are honest about it. Um yeah, there might be some if there's larger ones, I believe there could, in theory, be larger ones, and just like the governments of those countries just aren't honest about
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
that's neither here
Okay.
nor there. That's just like a not the point here. But thankfully, we do have like sort of statistics from here. Okay, so there's like a bunch of different types of prisons. High security institutions is like the top one on the list. Uh, yeah, there's high security institutions, medical facilities, medium security institutions, low security ones, uh, and obviously like issues of like people being below like during transport. You have local and state jails, and then minimum security places. And then you have the tertiary thing they recognize as like re-entry facilities and halfway houses. So guess what the percentages on like how many people escape from these facility of what the prison facility escape rates are for some of these places. Yeah, just like a category of prison. Guess like just ask about a category of prison. I'll tell you what the percentage of escaped prisoners are from that
For some of these
category.
places?
Uh
Oh, I'm gonna assume it's way lower than any, like, form of media would want you to believe it is. I'm gonna say less than 5% on a good portion of them.
the high security institution, like the big one, like the big one. Less like 0.1% of prisoner escapes come from high security institutions. It does happen. I think like a big
Mhm.
yeah, like no, like 0.1%.
Less than 1%? Yeah.
Yeah, so like
I guess it depends on, what we classify as escape at this point in time. What about recapture
oh,
rate?
generally, I mean, the average recapture rate is actually like a little bit longer. It's a little deceptive because of the thing that's at the top of the most where most people escape from, because most people are at large for a month, but that's actually really uncommon. I mean, the big thing with like high end security institutions is like in order to like for
Mhm,
anything, the nightmare scenario is like would require like a big incident, like some sort of terror, like almost terrorist level stuff happening, which could potentially happen. Would be weird to happen in a place like the United States generally. As for like the other places, like less than 2% of escapees go from like eight of the 10 types of institutions that I'm being presented with. Uh Minimum security prisons are, which I think is referring to minimum security uh federal institutions. They have about 5.6% of escapes. Um so that's not pretty low. Everything else is below 2%, with the exception of like halfway houses and reentry centers, which account for 89% of all prison escapes. Prison escapes being in like quotes. So like the people that escape from that are usually just like, I mean, a not necessarily a major threat, and b are you just put out a warrant. You don't necessarily do a big APB on them. So they are maybe so a lot of those guys just end up being like on the lam for like a month or so, and they drag the
mhm,
uh like prison rates, like the escape length rates up. I also read a CBS article about prison escapes while doing some things, and the guy they're interviewing is saying something like, "Yeah, prison escapes are more common than you'd think, but also less common than you think. The big flashy things that like you see on like a TV show, those are incredibly rare. But like if like most of the people that escape from like custody are at these like halfway houses or like re-entry facilities and just end up doing that. And also like you'd probably account stuff like people on parole or something like that. It's people that have access to the outside world already and are just like not reporting for check-in. Yeah, so it's like that's and like as for that sort of thing you'd probably have like one
Mhm.
a day across the entire US. Like that's really common. It just I mean, it's just the way it happens. Not necessarily concerning as a statistic though. It's just a thing you kind of expect to happen. You have like a few disciplinary issues with these sort of facilities all the time. It's expected and normal. It's not necessarily something you want to do a thing. There are crimes that happen while people are out. Usually, the thing that people get caught out for is violating some public order or drug possession are the most common things you get arrested for while you're out. Also, traffic. Yeah, traffic, possession of stuff, weapons, some assault stuff. When you get down to like the big bad things, it's like less than 1%. There's it's straight up yeah, there's like 0.4%, like 0.8% of crimes that occur while someone's escaped are homicides. Uh, of violent crimes, it's mostly assault, some robberies. But yeah, so that's
Mm,
always yeah.
yeah, I guess one of the bigger horror stories was, Bundy. Bundy did, a hit and run and then went on a murder spree was when he was out on, he escaped from, I do believe, the courthouse. So, I guess that would fall into, your category of, within traffic rather than,
Yeah.
like, escape from actual prison. Um,
The statistic on that would be during arrest slash
Infamously
transport to facility, which is 1.2% of escapes.
mhm. I guess the other, big prison break that when I think of prison break, I always think of Alcatraz. The people who escaped out of Alcatraz, notoriously, um, dug their way out onto a roof and then were able
Yeah,
to,
actually, I don't.
escape,
I
um, but this was, like, the early 1920s, maybe 1960s. I think it was
I don't think
1960s.
people tried to escape from Alcatraz, but I don't think that anyone actually confirmed escaped.
Yeah, so there is, evidence that they
Yeah,
did happen to make it to the mainland, but also evidence that they did not make it to the mainland, so it's, kind of up in the air on whether or not these people got out alive, because Alcatraz is an island, and
yeah,
the stuff that these prisoners
yeah,
had to be able to escape with were kind of very slim pickings, like which is also why, like, I brought up, earlier, I brought up, like, where when the Overton window started to shift on, like, prisoner rights because, like, in this specific scenario, they were able to cover up the sound of an electric drill because one person knew how to play
mm,
accordion and the prison allowed for an hour of music time each night.
yeah,
So Buddy would sit there and play his accordion loud enough to cover up the sound of this drill being stopped it from being heard by like guards or other prisoners so that they could escape out through a tunnel that they ended up digging out through their cells. So another thing that they did was they stole a bunch of raincoats, like 50 plus raincoats to be able to make like a makeshift raft to be able to float off the island because it's an island like so really if Canada really wanted to do a really good prison, it would probably be
yeah.
in probably the
Yeah.
territories
Um
or the Yukon, um, at this point because, like, snow, where are you gonna go if you're freezing to death, right?
yeah,
So
that's the yeah, that's the first major. Yeah, this is the first major category of like super prison where like they put it in the place that's really pain in the ass to get out of. And I mean a lot of these I mean,
well, then you have to argue the point at that point in time, like, is it cost efficient, um, to house people here at that point? Because, one bad blizzard that knocks out the heating in a mega prison,
oh
all of a
yeah, no.
sudden, you're getting
Yeah, that's an
massively sued, and you're getting shut down, so, I mean, like,
yeah, that's obviously like a nightmare scenario of like I didn't even think of that of like a nightmare scenario where like you build like this
don't do
fancy
that.
Arctic prison where you keep all the like dangerous criminals and then a blizzard knocks out of power and like a third of them die of like hypothermia. Yeah, you'd get your ass sued off like in any place with a functioning legal system because like when you go into prison like the assumption is like at least in like the traditional sense
Mhm.
the assumption you go into and we're going to get into this in some of the future episodes too of like the assumption is you go in there you do your time and if you die during that time that's sort of a problem because like that if people are just dying all the time while they're going into prison that's just kind of defeats the purpose of like having prison sentences because then just they die. They don't they forget like any sort of rehabilitation or redemption or like reasonable punishments because like a lot again also most people who are in prisons like are not necessarily violent criminals. There's a lot of especially in this drug in the drug war era of things there's a lot of guys who have like done like
Yeah,
maybe less so nowadays because this is eased up a bunch we've eased up a bit on this of like drug possession but a lot of people who are maybe in there for like petty theft or like some other just like trafficking but don't necessarily have like an assault or a robbery on their name.
I think this was falling into the conversation that we were having earlier about, like,
Yeah.
uh, the, optics, I guess, of, like, people in prisons, like
Hmm.
and I watch,
Yeah.
a YouTuber, he argues on YouTube for a living with mainly conservatives, but, um, his name's Jovan Bradley, and he was arguing, um, currently about like, what is the number one cause of people being in prison currently? And the answer is clearly poverty crimes, like crimes deprived from poverty. So like robbing somebody so you can eat tomorrow or um and the caller brought up like, oh, if they were robbing stores and stuff like that, why are they stealing like iPhones and like he couldn't rationalize the fact that, like, you're stealing iPhones to sell the iPhones to still be able to eat tomorrow or pay your rent or,
And
like
people are absolutely stealing food
and
too.
if
That
you
is a thing that happens. Or like I mean I've worked a long time in a liquor store. Like people, this most of the stuff that goes missing is the small stuff, so they can like satisfy their habit. And I mean the principles and like I think on like yeah, because the most common thing that goes missing is like something that's like a bottom
Mhm.
shelf vodka or whiskey or beer because they're like addicted to stuff and they can't and I think on some level they maybe understand that like that's wrong and they don't want to and they want to steal the smallest things so like they're doing the least causing the least problems and like I mean that's not necessarily an excuse but it is just a fact of the matter. I've had maybe one incident where like a guy was stealing something to resell it. Of course that's just the industry I was working in. But and I will note that the guy that stole the thing to resell it, he stole like a
Mhm.
it was weird. It was like two big things of Grey Goose. He had like snuck those into his pants while everyone was like crouched down everywhere else.
Texas Mickeys?
No, no, not that big. No, that yeah, no, no,
Okay, okay,
like
I'm like, "Man, that is quite the feat if you got 2 Texas
no,
Mickeys out of a liquor
no,
store,
no.
because those are big amounts of
And the
alcohol."
tech and Grey Goose doesn't actually do a Texas Mickey. They do like a bigger one. They do like a 5-liter bottle, which is bigger.
Oh,
But no, I think these were
Jesus.
40s, but they are quite big. Like great if you know your Grey Goose, you know
Yeah,
it's a really tall, like hefty bottle. But yeah,
um,
he stuck him down his pants and he immediately got caught. Like later that day, the police were like, "Oh yeah, we found the guy. Do you want the bottles back?"
see, that's what I don't really like nowadays because like, they're to some extent I want to see somebody beat the system and escape from a prison, and then, like,
Yeah.
go on and live a
Oh,
happy
that's yeah.
life
So many apps.
where they're not being abused in a system that is meant to keep, people
Yeah.
down and has been used for
Hmm.
years to keep people in a cycle of
Yep.
poverty and a cycle of, uh
Oppression. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
prison, I guess,
Yeah.
is generally a
Yeah.
yeah,
How many like
sure.
really
Um,
popular TVs and shows and movies have like featured like people escaping from prisons, and not a and like a lot of guys are innocent. Like Shawshank, the
mhm.
guy's innocent. I think the Fugitive, the guy's innocent. But like
Yeah,
there are guys that have like
that's, like,
genuinely committed a crime. But yeah,
the
even still, yeah.
the other half of it that I'm, like, extremely skeptical about is, like, it's a system ripe for
Mhm.
abuse, and it's always been a system ripe for abuse, but also, like, the ability to escape from a prison earlier on compared to the ability to escape and, like, um be out of prison for, like, an especially long time nowadays is, like, completely gone downhill because of, well, first of all, surveillance
Yeah.
state, like, massive surveillance state issues. All of your data's somewhere online. Um,
Mhm.
you can't even work without, like, a Social Security number anymore, so you're still, um, under the weeds. You'll never work like a menial job or a job in the, like, rest of your life, like, you'll be lucky to be hired on, um, like, side jobs or stuff
I
like that.
was just watching or listening to a podcast about where like the subject came up of these people that escaped from the penal colonies in Australia way back in the day and had gone to live with the indigenous tribes of specifically they were talking about ones in like North Australia and even on like an island that's just off Australia and like had gone and that even happened in back in the old days where like people would escape from prisons and go live with different indigenous peoples on like the outskirts of society where they can't really be reclaimed. But yeah, that's not as much an option anymore in
Mhm.
the modern day.
Yeah, well, like, even way back in the day, you escape, like, a prison chain and then, like, in the Wild West and just, like, reinvent your whole
Yep.
entire personality and your whole entire life and just get away with, like, skirting justice because they have really
Yeah.
no way to, like,
Also, yes.
"You vaguely look like this wanted poster
Yeah.
right now." So, um and I mean, I guess there is, the other side of that where people have maybe not necessarily escaped prison, but have, been on the lam for years or even, uh, decades now at this point in time. I think El Chapo was, notoriously on the top of, like, the FBI's most wanted list for the last, like, 10 years where clearly they have a system to stay hidden and stay on top of the police, but, the random Joe Schmo who broke out of prison doesn't necessarily have the means or the network to be able to, like, stay out of prison that
Yeah, you
long,
need
so
some place to go to in the long run. And just hiding out in the wilderness is becoming less and less of an option. I mean, that's yeah, that's why like the guy in Shawshank Redemption went to Mexico afterwards.
well, I'm assuming there, is the extra legal part of it, like, if you make it across a border, is somebody going to
Yeah,
extirpate you?
extradite.
Extirpate, is that the word?
But yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
also a
like,
question mark.
extradite, that's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
depends on the issue and
Mhm.
if they even find you or whatever. But yeah, and these are things you can maybe manage, but this is all very rare. But like just to get a little back onto the subject of like these really isolated prisons, these are, I think, like you could take this to like a really bizarre extreme of like things like I forget what they called it, but there was like prison they kept in the negative zone in the Marvel Comics stuff. I forget what they called it. I think it might have been called 42 or something. But it was a prison they kept in the negative zone. There were a couple of other reasons that was wrong, but it was, I mean, just it's a very hazardous area, but if you're in the negative zone for too long, it's like in this extra dimensional space where if you're in it for too long, it can cause like dread and like depression. So it's not a good place to be keeping people. And also, but it's
Sure.
also a it's maybe the one science fiction example of like a really isolated prison because there's only one way out and it's like a portal which somebody has the on off button for. And that's the sort of thing that you've seen. And there's other examples of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, and that's also a problem of like yeah, just being one of those things. And like I mean, even now there are like occasionally hear these stories of guys who have just been in prison and the guys just don't let them out. I think they're yeah,
Yeah, so
even though their like stuff is expired.
I think when you start to get into, like, copious amounts of human rights violations, like, we don't really care about if the person dies, like, you've got a whole bunch of options, like, in Russia, gulags where they, like, uh, freezing temperatures, starvation, that could go really bad really quickly, so I'm just glad that we're in some level of first world issues where, uh, the right to, uh, habeas corpus is one of the biggest ones that we should be talking about because that's what's going on in the United States, is argument that, um, uh, it's easier to ship them off than allow for their day in court.
Yeah, that's a bit what I'm getting at is like sometimes like there are just like really malicious like ignoring of the like the proper way of things should allegedly work. I mean, obviously with that example where they're like they're
Mhm.
yeah, the guy has like with the example of what's his name? I'm not remembering. But they just brought him back, I think, where they shipped him off with
Kilmar Obrego Garcia was the person you're talking about.
yeah,
There's a couple of
yeah,
other ones that
that's the
were
newsworthy one, right? Yeah. Also other ones, but they're like allegedly like in theory the guy's supposed to have a consultation with a lawyer. And this is true even if you aren't a citizen. Like you are at least welcome to a hearing. You are
yes.
entitled to a hearing. The position of the
Yeah, I don't think you're entitled to a
yeah, not
lawyer.
necessarily a lawyer, but there's a hearing system
Like, you have
in theory.
the state won't provide you a lawyer, but you are allowed to
Yeah.
consult a lawyer. The state won't provide it,
But yeah, and essentially and yeah.
if I am correct.
But yeah, essentially like what they were doing. And I'm sure some of this has happened before. I mean, mind you, with less of the like planes involved, but I know like people have been extradited, like expelled to Mexico despite being like American citizens before. That has happened. But like now
Yes.
like the new twist on it nowadays is that like they're sending them on to like a El Salvador, which is not is El Salvador an island? I can't remember. But like they're sending them away. And the theory is that like even though they're entitled to thing, their entire interaction with law enforcement is like just going through without ever going to a judge, which is just blatantly ignoring the letter of the law. And he can and Donald Trump can bitch and moan about how that's expensive and cumbersome, but it is the letter of the law, and it's designed to prevent like again US citizens, like in this scenario US citizens from getting expelled, because that is a thing that has happened with this issue of illegal immigration, of
Ooh,
just like random Hispanic people being expelled from the country that do end up having American citizenship. And this is all ignoring the
random Hispanic
yeah.
people,
Yeah.
Na Native
Also, yeah.
Americans who happen to also just be the wrong color of
Yep.
skin. Um, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was claimed to have been an MS-13 gang member. That was proven to be false. He's now back in the United States, currently awaiting trial on, in my opinion, a trumped up charge. Because I knew the Trump administration wasn't going to admit their wrongdoing, and they're going to kick their feet for the next couple of years on whether or not this was constitutional. Um, I think this super prison in El Salvador at this point in time has been stated that you will uh, be locked up in there and you'll never see the light of day again, which is eerie and concerning.
But yeah, and this is all sidestepping the issue of whether or not
Where
like we
was
should
I
be
going
treating
with it?
illegal immigrants like this at all. But or undocumented peoples, whatever.
Doesn't really matter about it. Documented legals anymore. It is literally written into the Constitution that anybody on U.S. soil, any person on U.S. soil, is open to the right to a fair trial, and that's what they're arguing right now. Is that because it's they don't belong here, that they aren't open to the fair trial, but in the Constitution it says any persons
Yeah.
on the soil of the United States, at this point. I think there was a Canadian actress that came over for work, um, and she was detained for like 12 days. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hassan Piker was a big
Yeah.
Twitch streamer that was detained for something, for speaking out against Donald Trump. One of the big other deportees was a person that spoke out against Israel. Um, he was Iranian, um, and had um, spoken out in an op-ed about Israel, and he was deported. So it's not just Kilmar Abrego Garcia right now. There's going to be a huge list of people that are going to be fighting back, or at least having a lot of pushback for the next couple of
Yeah.
years.
And
So
it's I'm not going to the States for a while. Europe's fucking nicer anyway. But but yeah. And this, and like I will also point out that some of this shit did happen before. I won't even necessarily say in lesser numbers. It's just that like so there's a big spike in it right now. Like as we're going through I guess we'll talk about some fiction real quick, because I did have some examples of like prison cities, which is the thing I wanted to talk about. And like I also kind of wanted to talk about like Super Jail. Have you ever seen Super Jail? Super Jail
no.
is an interesting little adult swim show that takes place in a super jail, which is an extra dimensional prison where people die with impunity. Like it's sort of funny. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask you really quickly. Well, mostly because some of the preparation I did for this episode was Dread,
Oh yeah,
Judge Dredd, about super cops, which is kind of completely a very
yeah.
different topic altogether. Because but what do they do for when they catch
Oh
criminals?
yeah.
When they don't outright just straight up murder them, what
Oh
do
yeah,
they
the
put them in?
ISO cubes. Yeah, they just put. I guess. Let me.
Okay,
I don't have a good image of what the ISO cubes are. ISO cube. But yeah, no, that was a thing they brought up. But yeah, just as I Google it because I forgot all about this. Uh, yeah, ISO cube, Judge Dredd slang. Yeah, it's just it's the system where non-capital crimes are like punished. Yeah, it's just literally like a block in the side of a building where like people are kept in.
okay,
It only opens from the outside. It's pretty normal prison cell stuff. I just think that there's a panopticon thing, which the panopticon is just like it's a prison system where like the original way you do it is like you make like a big ring of jail cells and then put a big watchtower in the center so that the watchtower could look in any direction and watch anybody. Nowadays you can just do that with cameras,
mhm,
but yeah, there's that, and also just like the ISO cubes. Just I don't think you can get out of them.
okay. I thought it was like a completely and entirely subconscious thing. I thought they like straight up just tortured these people up until they
No,
rehabilitate. But like I mean, not uh discounting what torture solitary
which this
confinement has
is. Yeah,
actually been turned out to be like people sit there and talk about it, and it just sounds like absolute hell where they're left for like months on a time in like basically a closet um with lights on 24/7 and food once a day. So
but yeah, no, that is also a thing we can bring up is like the idea of like these because you do see this event occasionally of suspended animation prisons where like people are putting. Oh yeah, this happened in what was it? The Tom Cruise movie we watched a while back. That we did one of these on. Minority Report. They had suspended animation prisons.
yes,
Where
yeah.
it's just like, and you ask the question in those of like, does this even count? You're just removing them from like you're not doing any rehabilitation or punishment. You're just keep taking them out of the equation for a certain amount of time. The only real punishment the person's going to
Yeah,
get is just like, oh, um, now when I got out, all my friends and family are dead. I missed my or like I had missed my entire child's
mhm.
childhood or whatever. It's not it. I mean, it's probably which is probably why we wouldn't do it. It just doesn't accomplish anything, and it seems very expensive for not accomplishing much. And also, I had like a so I watched. I've been watching my latest falling asleep cartoon has been a old animated show called Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, which has a bit of that Ready Player One disease where like they've created this like horrible dystopia and like no one addresses how horrible it is. Because
Mhm.
how they would punish prisoners in that is you'd get your mind pre-programmed. Yep, you get reprogrammed mentally, and that makes you not and that's how they make you not a criminal anymore. And this was apparently very effective. Yep, nothing. Yeah, no, that's one of those things. Is like there are just certain things where like you need to be 100% right about what's happening there, or it's just like completely horrible.
It just oh, this is what fucking irks me about our system where we just like try and do anything like any semblance of like uh roping in capitalism at
Yeah.
this point in time, like where we would rather pay people like multi-millions of
Yeah.
dollars to keep people in prison rather than like address poverty issues that are causing crime rates to skyrocket. Like it's just like some level of dystopian where like we are just ignoring is the system at this point in time to just simply be able to look the other way, um and not address
But yeah, no,
capitalism.
like I was saying, the mind erasing thing is like it's like calling it's like trying to call somebody on their bluff about being allergic to a food at a restaurant. It's like you better be 100% right about them faking their allergy, or you're the world's biggest asshole. Like there's no in between. Like you're either making a horrible mistake or you're completely in the right. Um, but on to your point.
Yeah, it's like wasn't that like the point of the movie A Clockwork Orange?
Maybe I haven't seen it.
Like the whole
Oh yeah,
reprogramming thing,
I guess
which
that would have
was
been the smart thing
I
to.
haven't either because it sounds kind of
I guess that would have been the smarter
like
thing to bring up
awful.
instead of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, a one season long children's cartoon. That probably would have been the thing that I could have brought up that would have made me taken more seriously.
Well, ultimately, I think it like I think it's extremely outdated.
Yeah,
First of all, like I think the science behind the whole entire Clockwork Orange has been
yeah.
disproven.
I also don't. I need to read up on like what's supposed to happen in that because I haven't seen the movie. But anyway,
They try and like rewrite like violent tendencies by like shock treatment people by like forcing them to watch like violent stuff and then like chemically castrating them or something like that along those lines or something. It's been a while. And I think I only read a plot synopsis of it because what's his face was in it. The guy who went on to play I want to say Terrence Howard, but I think that might be the wrong name.
I think that is yeah. But anyway, oh yeah, about Super Jail. Anyway, yeah, it's sort of this extra dimensional. It's
Mhm.
kind of like the nightmare scenario of like a lot of things we've discussed in this video of like an extra dimensional prison that's really that's impossible to get out of and where no one gives a shit what happens to you. So like you just die randomly. There's not too much to say.
Malcolm
Oh
McDowell,
yeah. Oh, that makes
by
way
the
more
way.
sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, super. Yeah,
Terrence Howard was the
yeah.
original
I was
roadie
gonna
of
say that. Yeah, he's
uh
the he's the weird
Iron
math
Man.
guy apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, Super Jail is just like the logical stream of like everything that's that could possibly be horrible about a jail system, and like it's played off for comedy, which it is a funny show. I haven't watched all the episodes, but I did enjoy a bit of it. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things where like where you've just added this thing, and it's like just the obvious thing happens where it's like people die randomly.
I guess my other question would be to speaking on like the terms of like super jails. I know Batman has a contingency de to at least like not I wouldn't say destroy but like detain and stop the supers from going absolutely
Yeah,
crazy. And I know in later on and I want to say Injustice they had Clark Kent um locked in a prison under Red
yeah,
Kryptonite's son, stopping him from being able to like do anything. I think in Justice League Dark, Apocalypse actually just tattooed Superman with kryptonite. But like, does Batman have a like long term detention like plan for the Justice League if he needed to, or is it like we just need to like take them out so that they're no longer a
I
threat?
think he does. I think he does. It's never shown on screen though. Because I think Yeah, because
Okay.
in the storyline you're referring to, which is called Tower of Babel in the comics, he says he does have them, like those contingency plans are like intended to be non-lethal, and then they get corrupted pretty easily when Ra's al Ghul gets a hold of them. But speaking of Batman, I wanted to talk about briefly about Arkham City, because that's the idea of like taking like an entire island and like putting all the criminals on it and like cutting it off from contact with anybody. This is a terrible idea. Uh, obviously. Yeah.
This is also the plot line to Escape from
Yeah.
New York, which I was gonna watch for this episode, but I didn't end up
Also,
getting
yes.
around to it. So
That's right. I thought I watched
uh,
it for the show at one point, but I
I
did
have it
just watch it
down.
because I was curious. But yeah, no, it's but yeah, the premise of both those is that you've just cut off like a large island and just stuck all the prisoners on there. This is a terrible idea. For first of all, it means you're giving up. You're giving up on being able to like do any sort of
Also,
helping.
wasn't this
Go ahead.
isn't this just the plot to Australia at this point in time?
Meh.
Like, wasn't Australia just a penal colony for the British, and then it ended up getting colonized
I
essentially?
mean, yeah, that's the difference there is that like they had people like doing like they had non-criminals on Australia that like made it into like a
Mhm.
real country and then exterminated a bunch of the indigenous people of the area. But anyway, um
This is why I like the idea around Game of
mhm,
Thrones. Like, you get caught for a crime, you get shipped off to the wall, you live out the rest of your life in like miserable inaptitude, but like at least you're alive and at least you're not like locked away technically
yeah,
like in prison. Like you're going to do service, but
it
also
is probably one of those scenarios of like, oh yeah, this is just the thing people escape from sometimes.
yeah,
But on to like the yeah, why yeah, if you make these like big prison islands where you just let the prisoners fend for yourselves, hey, it means you're giving up. That's like the textual reasoning, like a textual statement behind Escape from New York is that like they're just giving up on all the criminals or just leaving them all there. Like you're giving up on like reforming any of them or even being able to contain any of them. And also like I mean and like also just like it brings up this whole problem of like even if someone did serve their sentence on one of these things, you have to go through a whole bitch ton of trouble to like extract them, which is a problem. Also, I did find one example of a real what I'll call a prison city. I did look it up, and I guess people were
sure.
looking into the examples, and some people brought up what's at the top of the list here, San Pedro Prison in Bolivia. Yeah, so
Okay,
it's literally a prison city. It's like a city where like you put people where they put people in it, and they have their own little jobs in it, and there's no guards inside the prison to like sort anything out. And like the prisons have and this is the big rub of all this, the
okay,
prisoners have made like their own little society in there. Yeah, they have
sure.
their own like sort of like pseudo legal code. And like I mean a lot of the law enforcement is just like you stab a guy if he breaks the rules. But it is a system. It's what's available to them.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that in a
Yeah.
lot of prisons where they've established their own code. Like, uh, if anybody's caught working with the guards, they're gonna get stabbed. Like, you don't work with the guards, but if there's no guards, then I don't know what to tell you. I think there was. I don't know if it was actually a thing. Do you know if the Stanford prison riots were
Or the
actually like
experiment
something that
where like they
existed?
try to keep people was that the one where they like try to keep people awake for several days?
No, that is the one where they, put in people into, a prison and basically give them roles. Some were prisoners and some were,
Oh,
um prison guards, and then they, like, let them just do whatever they want, and then all of a sudden, people were murdering other people. It sounds, like, really sensational when you say it like that, but, so it might just be like, a film, but,
I don't know if like
um
people actually died. I think I've heard of this, but yeah, I mean, if you give people a uniform and hand them like power, they'll start acting like a bunch of fascists. But this is just the fact of the matter.
which is ultimately, like, an argument against the system in general is, like, how long is the window gonna shift from, like, "Hey, I'm doing a job," to, "Hey, I'm in charge here. I'm the big dog, and, anybody who's arguing against me is gonna get their shit kicked in, essentially." Um, it's like the type of people that, like, wanna be cops, some, like, intentionally start out and, like, with good ideology, like, in or around, like, policing, and then other people get into it specifically to abuse their power, and, like, how long is it gonna take from, like, a good person going into police work to, in the end, ultimately becoming corrupt or, a
Yeah.
dick?
Um.
Like,
But yeah, as for like on to back onto San Pedro for a minute, like the only prison like the guards just like maintain the perimeter. Like they don't handle anything inside. And mostly the reason why they've done
sure,
this is because Bolivia at least was I don't know how current all this information I'm getting is, but like at the time at least it was seen as like they really don't have the like power to regulate this facility. And from what I'm gathering of like the San Pedro, it's not the big heavy prison. Like I saw a statistic in there that said 75% of the people there were just awaiting trial. But other than that, it's also like really low security. Actually, like one of the reasons why it's a city is because those people's husband, like wives and children, can come live with them in the prison city.
gross.
Yeah, they can, and like the women and children can leave. And there's also like a
Mhm,
nearby women's prison where the women, the women's prison nearby is like a proper prison, but like the children that end up there,
yeah,
so that the mothers can take care of them, like those children can also like go in between those two communities. But yeah, and like part of the reason is just like we don't have the like they just don't have the resources to maintain a proper facility. And like this place is also notoriously a bit of a drug smuggling den. They're like the guards do receive like have or at least
mhm,
did receive bribes to like let in like drug bases and whatnot. There was a little bit of a even like some tourism that was going on in there, but that has had the kibosh put on it because people were like going in there to like do drugs, and the government's just sort of saying, "Ah, we're not doing that anymore." But yeah, it was sort of a thing where like, oh, people, yeah, people can go or stay. It's just like the prisoners, and then when your term goes up, you can just leave.
and what's the 3rd one you have
Oh,
mentioned here,
that's a
this
little less
Hashimima?
important. It's only technic. I was looking into like what it takes for like because like the other thing about with Manhattan is like I was thinking about like places that have been abandoned, and like I was looking into like what was like largest abandoned community which you could like because that's kind of like especially with Escape from New York, it's very much like the assumption behind Escape from New York is like you're giving up on Manhattan, which is like one of the major metropolitan areas in the United States. And there's a lot of reasons you don't do that sort of thing. I don't think like a major city has never been like abandoned like that necessarily. There have been ones that have been destroyed, but I don't think there's because especially some like New York, like you have ports and stuff there. Like it's too much of a liability to get rid of to like abandon it. Which is I think a reason where like there was talk during Katrina of like abandoning New Orleans, and you're not really gonna do that because there's so much like infrastructure that goes through there, and you'd be like causing like a lot of it'd be more trouble than it's worth to like permanently abandon it. You'd need like some presence there anyway. Because like cities, believe it or not, exist in the area for a reason. It's not like some arbitrary thing.
I guess when they did it in Arkham City, at least in the TV show Gotham, they blew up the bridges all leading out to the island essentially, so nobody could get in or out, and then all of a sudden it just went full riot mode at that point in time, where the GCPD were like the only form of law
I
and
think you're
order within
thinking
the whole entire
No
city.
Man's Land a bit, but yeah,
Oh,
Arkham City.
maybe.
I'm talking about literally the video game where they like expand Arkham Asylum to be an entire city, like another suburb of Gotham or whatever. And it's yeah, that's just.
Mhm.
I mean, even in the game, they're like, that is a stupid idea. Why are we doing this? And like, I mean, on to Arkham. Like they like part of the reason why I don't give Batman shit about not killing the Joker is because like I mean, look at our earlier statistic. People don't actually escape from prison that often. The idea that the idea that the
Yeah.
Joker is literally escaping from Arkham Asylum every 2 weeks is like Hollywood make believe. Like the Joker is a normal human being. You should be able to keep him inside a jail cell. By all like reasonable imagination.
Yeah, but is he though?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah. I didn't read Jokers, and I don't.
Yeah, but does he not have like superhuman intellect? Like, isn't he not like
I
smarter than the
guess.
average person? So, like, prison escaping is kind of, like, relatively easy for him, like, somebody like the Riddler or Lex Luthor, I guess, when you're, like, looking at the top end of things.
I mean, in the same way that like Batman's like a super intellect, it's not really. I don't count it as like superpowers or whatever, and they don't like list it as a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, um, but yeah, realistically,
Or, like, I guess the really big series was, like, Prison Break, and the guy was, like, a structural engineer or something that made him, like, more likely to break out of prison than anybody else, and they didn't, like, think to, figure that out before they locked him in a prison.
and yeah, this is a part of the reason. Like a lot of, like a lot, any like sufficiently complicated prison break will require some incompetence on the part of the staff. These are just the facts of the matter. And I'm not even like talking shit about the staff. It's just like it's just a matter of yeah, no, it's just a thing where like if you leave people alone long enough and like don't watch them properly, they will get out of there. People are clever human beings. Clever. They will get out of a
Mhm.
place if you allow them proper leeway. But yeah, anyway, about Hiroshima City, I was like talking about like the idea of like abandoned cities and like you like just abandon the city and like keep all the prisoners there. That's it's just not terribly realistic. Like I was looking up like the largest abandoned cities and like Hashima Island, otherwise known as like Battleship Island. It's a location just off the coast of the southernmost island of Japan. It was used in the Meiji
Okay.
restoration as a like coal mine. It does technically count as a prison island because they did the Japanese did use it as a did use prison labor to like mine out the mine for a while, at least in like a 20-year period just before World War II. Just before and during World War II. It's actually like it was a big sticking point between them and the Koreans because a lot of like imprisoned Koreans got transferred there to do coal mining.
Yeah, and I guess the other conversation I guess we need to be having on the whole entire prison, like, complex system is, like, people are making copious amounts of money on it, and that should be
Yeah,
not
prisons
allowed.
are yeah like any government like you can get make money off anything, but yeah, in prisons aren't like as like we had talked a little bit earlier about like the cost of these things. It's not as bad as like a lot like the military, where like the military is like stupidly expensive, and everything to do with it is like the most expensive thing you ever heard of in your life. Prisons aren't quite that bad. At least typically they can be a liability, but like you have seen like there are occasionally examples where like there are budget cuts, so like so like you'll just start letting some people out. Usually this is a thing, just a thing that happens. It's a way of doing it. Some people will fearmonger about this sort of thing being a oh, if you let cut the thing, they'll let the prisoners out. I don't know how. Again, a lot of prison people aren't actually violent criminals, and there is also the sometimes you hear this thing from like law enforcement people where like, oh, they're just letting people go in and out of this, like go we aren't keeping people in, they're just going back on the street, but like the crimes that the guys just keep getting away with are like tiny. So like they're doing like small crimes and they're only getting put away for like a few months at most, and like yeah, of course that looks like a revolving door at some point. But what are you going to do? You end up in this situation where you get like three strikes and like suddenly a guy's serving 15 years for like being caught with like a handful of pot or something. It's not necessarily the most ethical thing. Like it's difficult to like really, it can be difficult to justify putting people in jail for a long time when the crimes don't necessarily add up to it. And that can absolutely be frustrating to some people, but it is what it is.
So another really big argument for this is like decriminalization of like any form of personal amounts of drugs. Vancouver, I think, attempted to do it, and everybody just brands like Vancouver this like leftist paradise at this point in time because of it, and it's like, well, it's a crime with no victim. You are the victim of drug use in the terms of using drugs at that point. Um, so why should you be
Yeah,
punished for
and
it?
a lot of people are just like they want them put away because they don't want to see homeless people or people with like drug addictions. And like, I'm sorry, I can't really help you with that. I don't think it's
Yeah,
necessarily ethical to be locking people up over like these small things just so you don't have to look at somebody who's a bit sketchy. I mean, this is just a problem in there when you try to over, and like I think just like if you have a sufficiently large city, you're gonna have some people that see like, I mean, to an extent seem at least seem unsavory. And there's not much you can do about this. You can't enforce everywhere to be a little suburb. And like if you start doing that, you're gonna start getting some problems.
over policing of like certain areas or certain minority groups. There's going to be a lot of interlap. Yeah, I can see. Um, I think that that was the one of the biggest arguments I see against like safe injection sites. It's like we don't want it in our backyard or near our schools or like anywhere else, and the argument becomes, well, where do we allow it? Where is it conveniently located? Where it's not near any of this, but also like convenient for people of like a homeless population to be able to like access or use it. One of my biggest arguments I hear against safe injection sites is like not in my backyard. I got into an argument with a guy about it on the internet like 3 months ago, and it all
Yeah,
boiled
and
down to
like
that.
if eventually you just end up with a problem where like, oh, we need to build low income housing or whatever, and like, oh, well, not in my backyard, and then you end up just like making it like so inconvenient or never having it happen at all, which like defeats the purpose of even being able to do anything, and just like totally cripples the ability to deal with like some problems. And I mean, if we operate, you just can't operate society on the idea that like we never see a homeless person.
And I think that that's why I push so heavily left at this point in time is because like the right wing don't want to do anything about it, and I think that even like conservatives here in Saskatchewan, like there's like 3,600 housing units that's supposed to be going to low income that haven't been utilized in almost like 3 years because they've fallen into disrepair, and the Saskatchewan party won't do anything to clean them up. So there's 36 people or 3,600 people who aren't housed because we don't have the funds to be able to clean up housing here
And I
in
mean,
Saskatchewan.
the
So
argument sometimes is just like, oh yeah, well those people are just going to waste those resources anyway. But like, not all of them, and like the people that will actually make good use of those resources aren't going to be able to get them, and then they're going to fall into further problems. But
or people who currently are like on SNAP in the United States, people are arguing that they're going to abuse it, but like the vast majority of like people abusing like welfare benefits is like 1% of like the 98 people that utilize it and are like actively working while they're using it and like not just sitting on welfare.
like anything, they like pin. I'm a lot of people in society are just like absolutely terrified of anyone getting any sort of like tiny break. And it's if you operate under that assumption, you're just gonna make a big pain in the ass for making a big pain in the ass for everybody.
I think ultimately, uh, the we saw that again here in Canada recently because they were trying to vote on universal basic income here in Canada. The NDP was actually really pushing heavily for it, and I think it lost to like 20% or 27% of the votes. It lost like 27 people were in favor, 27% of the vote was only in favor of universal basic income. But that's where we're gonna see like lower crime rates as well. Are people housed? Are people fed? Can they live? You know,
Yeah.
it also starts to make the push against um being
Hmm.
mistreated in workplaces because people have the
Yeah.
ability to leave jobs easier if they're still able to pay for their basic needs. So, um, yeah, like it's just ultimately can we eliminate
Yeah.
poverty
And
to move forward?
yeah,
But
people are just like really antsy about ever have letting anyone use like things for what they need to be used for. I don't know. It's
look, I think ultimately, like, I think it best to like is signified by a conversation I recently had with my younger brother. He's I wouldn't say staunchly conservative, but he's definitely like conservative leaning, and he
yeah.
works in the oil field, so I kind of see where he gets it from. But like he was bringing up like welfare recipients, and I'm like, do you know how much you pay in, like, terms of, like, welfare recipients per year based off of your paycheck currently? And he's like, "No," and I'm like, maybe $6 of it is it, like, goes to welfare. So it's like it's the idea that, like, if I'm paying for it, then nobody should be, like, using it, but, like or
I
abusing
don't bitch
it,
about people using
like
it. They shouldn't bitch. I don't bitch about people using it because if I ever need to use it, I don't want people bitching to me about using it. That's my line.
yeah, and I think that's where generally comes from is, like, they don't ever see themselves having
Yeah.
to use it. Like, they think that their employment is absolutely 100% guaranteed at all times, and then all of a sudden, when they need it, it's not gonna be there. So,
But anyway, I think we're drifting off a little bit. But yeah, I think that's the
yeah,
super prisons episode. We'll get together soon enough to talk about either the constitute. Yeah, we'll do the one about prisons to contain super people episode next. So yeah, super prisons and then
sure.
prisons for super people. Um, because that's a whole nother can of worms, and we might tack on some stuff about constitutionality at the end of that. We'll see how the research goes. But As always, we're not really here to explain why it works. We're just here to explain what happened. We'll see you next time. Bye. There we
Bye.
go.